had one of those huge industry scales that, you put all your metal on or whatever, and it weighs it and tells you how much you brought in so they know how much to pay you. I looked at the guy and I was like, hey man, can I stand on that? I said, I haven't weighed in over a year. I can't find a scale that'll work, or that'll go up high enough. And he laughed at me because he didn't know I was serious. And I was like, no, like, I'm being honest. Like, would you mind? And he was like, oh no, here. He like swept it off, brushed it off, and scale or zeroed it out. And so I stepped up on that, and I remember just, seeing it and seeing, like, my heart sunk. Like, I was, what was I? I was 21. I just turned 21, and I was, within 25 pounds of hitting a quarter ton. Like, that was heartbreaking, monumental in the worst way. That was just, it killed me inside to see that.
That is Ethan Still this week on the Do It For Yourself podcast. Hey friends, how's it going? How are you? What is going on in your life today? I'm glad that you have decided to join us here on the Do It For Yourself podcast and spend a little bit of time listening to yet another amazing story. This week, my guest is Ethan Still, and Ethan is someone who went through a amazing weight loss transformation. When he started, he was weighing in at 476 pounds, and he actually did not have a scale that could measure his weight when he had first started. And he had gone on to lose his first 100 pounds in about 10 months, and then in the course of that next probably about 13, 14 months, he dropped, another 100 pounds or so, and he's currently weighing in at 263 pounds. He's, a pre-med student right now living down in Texas, and he brought such an amazing energy to the show, and I am really, really looking forward to sharing this interview with you guys, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. I am joined this evening by Ethan Still. And Ethan has a very, very amazing weight loss story that we're going to dive into real deep here this evening. But first, I just want to say, Ethan, thanks so much for, jumping on with me and making this work with your schedule, given that you're in school and we're talking about being pre-med and all that stuff. I can't even imagine how busy your schedule is right now. I think I saw that you were up at like 5:30 this morning, already on Instagram sending me a message.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's definitely been something we've been in the works for a while, trying to get schedules to line up and everything, but I'm definitely glad to do it, and I thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that originally you had said you were from Virginia or out that way on the East Coast, but now you're down in Texas, right?
Yeah, well, I'm from Nebraska. I've spent a little time up in the New York area, but never lived or anything, just a couple vacations. Yeah, I'm from Nebraska originally. Kind of lived all over the place, several different places, and settled down here in Texas now.
Okay, and when you were in Nebraska, how far were you from Omaha?
I was about 3.5 hours from Omaha.
Okay, yeah. So the age group national championship for the past 2 years, like I was, telling you before we started, was out in Omaha, Nebraska. And no offense to Omaha or Nebraska, I really didn't have any other reason to go out there. And so I'm thinking to myself when they released the location for where it was going to be, I'm like, man, Omaha, Nebraska, what the heck's going on out there? Like, we're not going to have anything to do when we get there. Little did I know that the city of Omaha is amazing, and it's a ton of fun, and their zoo goes back and forth with San Diego on the top-rated zoo in the country. So we had a blast out there.
Yeah, that's the zoo is about all Nebraska's known for, that and corn. And you gotta love the Cornhuskers, University of Nebraska all the way.
Yeah. So I want to dive into your story a little bit here, and I want to go back as far as you can remember when you were a kid, and I want you to kind of tell me a little bit about your childhood, and were you a bigger kid when you were growing up?
Yeah, I definitely was. I remember I was either right at or a little over 100 pounds in kindergarten. I remember. I've always been on the bigger side, the chubbier side for sure.
And do you remember what your diet looked like at that time? I mean, I know down in the South, you know, everything is fried and it's, the fried chicken and everything's in potatoes and they deep fry everything. So, would you say that your diet was similar out there in Nebraska?
Yeah, Nebraska is huge meat and potatoes. I mean, it was a lot of starches. It seems like every week I would have spaghetti at least twice a week. So, I mean, a lot of carbs there between the tomato sauce and, everything. And then I would have chicken fried steak at least once a week. We grew up on chicken fried steak. So yeah, it's been a lot of fatty foods, a lot of fried foods, carbs, starches, things like that. That's pretty much was, all I ate growing up. There wasn't much. As that typical, I don't want to eat vegetables unless it's corn, and corn's not even the best vegetable for you. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what about your activity level? Like, did you play any sports when you were a kid in kindergarten? First grade, in that part of your life, a lot of kids are playing t-ball or they're playing soccer or there's like little, basketball leagues that they're a part of. So what, I know you were eating a lot of food that maybe wasn't the best, but what did your activity level kind of look like?
I mean, the really, as far as I was never huge into video games or anything, so I wasn't inside a lot. But as far as like organized sports, I never, the only thing I played was soccer, and I was the goalie, and I actually quit soccer because it was too much running. And I was the goalie. Looking back, I think that's like one of the funniest things that I was the only person on the field that stood around the whole time, and I quit because it was too much running. So that just kind of shows where I was as far as I didn't have any, I guess, work ethic or whatever at that young of an age. I wasn't just motivated at all. And I mean, what do you expect from a 5 or 6 year old? But at the same time, that's just kind of, I guess, shows what I was setting myself up for later on in life. And that was the only sport I played, if you will, until sixth grade.
And but you were outside a lot. So what were some of the like activities that you like to do outside? And did you have neighbors or other kids that were around?
Well, so a little bit about me and my story. I want to say until the time I was 12, I actually lived in, I believe it figured up to be somewhere around 17 different houses, areas, towns, somewhere in there. And, I want to say 3 or 4 different states. So it wasn't, I never really made friends. The longest I stayed in any place was only 2 years, up until sixth grade. And sixth grade is when I moved to Texas, and that I've been here ever since. But other than that, the longest I ever stayed was 2 years. So it's kind of hard to really, build that friendship, build that bond at that age, in 2 years and keep it whenever you're constantly losing your friends that you make. So a lot of my things were just playing. I have little sisters, and so a lot of it was like playing with them. Like we would be on trampolines, or during the summer we'd be running around playing in the sprinklers or swimming in the pool. Uh, things of that nature. I remember we would always like make mud pits and just go out and just wrestle and play in the mud and just I mean doing little kid stuff. So I mean it wasn't. I wasn't by any means out there just running triathlons as a younger kid, but at the same time I wasn't sitting around playing PlayStation all day.
Right. Yeah. And so when you were in elementary school and in you know, that part of your life, were kids starting to poke fun at you in those younger years?
Yeah, I did. I really remember it starting to kind of become an issue around third or fourth grade. I was always getting in trouble as well, so that didn't help. Just because I was one of the I don't know, I've always found school a little on the easier side. So if I wasn't being, stimulated or whatever, I would get bored and then I would start causing problems. And so that did contribute a lot to it. And I did get messed with and picked on and, things of that nature. So I actually like my coping mechanism. I learned to become kind of the class clown. Like I was the kid that made fun of myself that way. I'd take the jokes, I'd take the zingers. That way nobody else could get them. Nobody else could hurt me. Nobody could make fun of me because I already said it myself. Therefore, I beat you basically. That was my kind of defense mechanism towards that.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's two things. One I wanted to ask you, and then two I wanted to say something about that. So first, I kind of wanted to ask slash say that moving every 2 years would therefore mean that you're the new kid in school every time. So unfortunately, not only were you a bigger kid, but you were the bigger kid that was the new kid as well. And so, those friendships and those cliques and everything like that, they were already formed. So you kind of had like a double whammy almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was every time, moving in somewhere, you would start somewhere new. I dreaded the first day of school just because 9 times out of 10, a majority of the time it was starting a new school. And kids, it's a lot worse now than it was when I was, in elementary and whatnot. But kids are vicious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then the other point I wanted to make was that it's funny. I think that when you are the bigger kid or person in class or whatever the social situation may be, the more people I talk to for this podcast who have a transformation story to tell, they all say the same exact thing, that their coping mechanism was to make the joke first, to be the class clown, to be the person that was, making everybody else laugh, because it would remove the attention from themselves, and it would remove that, like, oh, I'm gonna make fun of him for his size. Well, if I make fun of myself for my size, then you can't really do it. Like, it's not gonna hold as much weight. And I mean, almost every person that I've talked to, they all say the same exact thing.
Yep. Yeah. It was definitely, there was another kid, he was a good friend of mine in high school. He did the same exact thing. I mean, we both constantly, both grew up without a dad, so we would both constantly joke about that. And we both, grew up on the chubbier, bigger side, so we both joked about that. That way nobody else could really get after us on it.
Yeah. So at the point where you are now in...
It's a shame. It's a bad place to be, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You kind of cut off there. Go ahead. Can you say that again?
I was just, yeah, you kind of cut out for a second too. I was just saying it's a bad place to be. I mean, to have to, I guess, psychologically make fun of yourself and, constantly tear yourself down just for hopes that you feel better about yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So when the middle, I feel like for me personally, like the middle school, like for us, that's like the like 5th, 6th, 7th grade, somewhere in there, is where you kind of haven't found your real, like, true friends like you have in high school, right? You're still kind of trying to find your path, and you're in that weird, like, adolescent stage, and like you're kind of like an alien. You don't really know what's going on with your body or like the world or anything. So I feel like that's the time where things, kids were like mean in middle school. And so did you kind of experience any of that? And was there anything that like really sticks out in your head? Because I personally, I can literally remember things that like kids said to me from that point in my life.
Yeah, I definitely. So 4th grade was, I spent 1 year at one school in 4th grade. 5th grade was 1 year at one school in Wyoming, and then 6th grade is when I moved to Texas. So 6th, 7th, and 8th, I was with the same group of people for the most part. And definitely it was like you say, that's a very awkward time. 5th grade in Wyoming, I made friends with like probably 3 months of school left. That was when we finally all like got that little group together, and we had, I kind of fit in with somebody. That was really when I started to make those friends. And then here, lo and behold, 2-3 weeks left of school. Hey, we got another job. We have to move. We're going to Texas. So then boom, everything, the friends I thought I had, I was going to play football with them the next year. Like, everything like that went out the window, and I was on my way to Texas to meet new people and hopefully find new friends. So it was definitely, and then, sixth grade was definitely torturous as far as moving down here, because the South is a completely different lifestyle than, living up there. And I just got back on vacation from Nebraska. So it's amazing how much different the ways of living are, and just the social, beings of people. But yeah, moving down here in sixth grade, and, you're known as the Yankee because you talk funny and you come from Wyoming, and all this. You're automatically setting yourself up, and then you add the weight on top of it, and you add all this on. So yeah, sixth grade was definitely a rough year. It was a majority of the year. I mean, I might have made a couple just casual friends, I guess, by the end of the year, but really it was sometime in seventh grade before I ever actually like socialized, like especially outside of school, with anybody.
And so getting into like this point in time, do you remember how much you weighed at that point in time? Like high school
Well,
ish?
I know I was really big into powerlifting. So I that is a sport you weigh every week or whatever. And I remember every single meet except one in my high school powerlifting career. I would step on the scale in front of a locker room full of guys, and coaches and whatnot, and the scale would say E or error, because I was over 400 pounds. The one time I was able to weigh in high school powerlifting, I was 412, and that was because they had like a big scale at the time. So yeah, before I graduated eighth grade, I actually made a challenge, I guess, with like 3 or 4 months left in eighth grade before graduation. That, with a teacher, we kind of challenged each other and put a wager or whatever. Like I had to shave my head, and I think she was going to have to dye her hair blonde or something, to like who could lose the most weight, just to keep each other. Because, what brought this on is I hit 300 pounds. I was, however old you are in eighth grade, I don't know exactly off the top of my head right now how old I was. I want to say I was 14. But I hit 300 pounds at that age. I was still in middle school and, already there. So I was like, this is insane. I can't do this to myself. I'm going to hit 500 soon. And so that, I ended up losing like 30 pounds and got down to 270 or so during that time. During that little stint in eighth grade, like I say, it was 3-4 months. And I was back over 300, I want to say, before school started up that fall. So it was never... It never lasted. Discipline was something that I extremely, struggled with extremely badly.
And so then, once you get into high school and beyond high school, do you know what led to getting up to that 476 pounds?
Well, yeah, I ate a lot.
Yeah.
I was an emotional eater. I would get bored. I didn't play, so I played football and I powerlifted the first 3 years of school, or of high school, freshman, junior, sophomore. And then the end of my junior year, I got my first job, because it was, I get to that age, I started wanting more and more things. Things started costing, etc. And my mom was, raising me and two sisters by herself. So there was no extra funds for what I wanted. So it was, I'm going to go get a job. That way I can get what I want. I can help out, whatever the case may be. So I got a job, wasn't able to power lift or play football my senior year. I mean, I don't want to sound like I was forced. Like I made the choice. I wanted to start working. I wanted to be able to support myself and, be able to have things. So I definitely made the choice. And with that and a car, I mean, that led to a lot of, Jack in the Box tacos, essentially. that seemed to be my main food group, was fast food. And, so, anytime I'd get bored, I'd go to town. Anytime I'd, just whatever, I'd be mad, I'd need to get out of the house, I'd go. And it always led to eating. It always, it was never salads. It was never 6 inch from Subway. I mean, it was never anything healthy.
Yeah, I think so. I know that, like, for me, I had the same thing when I was in my junior and senior year of high school. I had gotten my first job, and I was like, wow, this is great. I can have money and go buy things that I like. And so I quit playing lacrosse, and then my senior year, I did a half a day of school, and the other half of the day and more into the evening, I would be at work. And so I completely gave up whatever I had, athletics wise, and was going to work. But then even going into college, I was commuting going to college, and it was just like, all right, well, I'm on the road, I have a job, I'm working, so I can buy food. And like you said, it was never anything healthy. It was never like a salad works, or, I think now the saving grace for anyone who's like counting macros and trying to eat healthy but still wants like a hot meal is Chipotle, you know. And there was none of that.
Absolutely.
There was none of that, and it was just like McDonald's, or out where we are, it's Wawa. So we had, but it wasn't a healthy salad from Wawa. It was like the fried chicken tender sandwich with the mayonnaise and the cheese and all that stuff on it. So like I can completely relate to that side of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. That I actually had the same scenario. My senior year of high school, I show up at 8 o'clock and I was out of school at 8:30 on the work program, and so I was working part time jobs. So on the days that I was off or whatever, that was when I was a little bit more into video games. Like I would go hang out with my like my youth minister at my church. He was a really good friend of mine and kind of a mentor growing up. Um, and so I would go hang out with him, and we'd play Call of Duty Zombies or something. Like we'd play Call of Duty all day long for 6-7 hours, and then a lot of that would be, all right, let's pause here, we'll go get barbecue, or let's pause here. And I mean, there was countless times we would go to the grocery store and we wanted like hot wings, but instead of going and buying hot wings, we'd go to the grocery store and buy drumsticks and make our own hot wings that were like 50 times the size. So, we're frying these foods, we're frying Oreos, we're frying, just experimenting, because like I say, I embraced my size. Like I enjoyed it. I was the fun fat kid. I was the one that, oh, Ethan's around, we're going to eat good. Ethan's around, we're going to do this. I was that kid, and, I embraced it fully. So it was never anybody like, oh, well, he's on a diet or whatever, let's, be a little more cautious. It was, hey, we have an excuse to, pig out because Ethan's around. So let's go for it.
Yeah.
And, so on those days that you don't work, then you have that, you're sitting around for hours. So it was definitely a pivotal time. And, when I went from, yeah, I'm overweight, yeah, I'm obese, to I'm on a path to my own grave, basically.
Yeah, and so like you had tried this in the past, and you had that little bet with a teacher. Did you have any other attempts to lose weight? And when you got up to the 400, the 425, and upwards, did you ever have anyone that tried to help, or like tried to offer advice or anything?
I worked at an auto parts store, and this one guy that worked with me, he was getting in the gym. He was kind of the opposite. He was always really small. He wanted to add weight. He wanted to bulk up, get a little bit bigger. And I obviously needed to lose weight. So he was like, hey man, let's go work out. Like, just come to the park. Well, so this was 2015. So I'd been out of high school for 2 years. And he was like, yeah, come on, like, let's just go to the park. We just went to the park and we like kind of walked or jogged or whatever around the track, did some like high intensity interval type stuff, burpees, whatnot. And I almost died. But at the same time, I felt really good. Like, hey, I'm actually doing something. This is nice. So the next day on my lunch break, I went and signed up for a gym membership, and ended up over the course of like 9 months. I want to say over the course of 9 months, I ended up actually losing 60 pounds or so. I remember seeing 397. No, I did. I got down to about 370 something. And the I guess I was always looking for a reason to not go to the gym or something, because after about 9 months of pretty much 5 to 6 days a week constantly, I mean, I was meal prepping consistently, I was doing everything right. I ended up doing. I had a truck break down on me. I used to drive a lot of classics. I was always working on stuff. I had a truck break down on me, and I wasn't able to make it to the gym that day because I was fixing my truck in order to be able to go to work and school the next day. And I mean, just like I didn't go to the gym again for probably a good year. Like I went from every day or, 5, 6 days a week for 9, 10 straight months to that one day, oh, my truck broke down. Well, now here it is a year later. I've put back the 70 pounds that I lost, 60 pounds that I've lost, and then some. And that's where I ended up at. So, like I said earlier, discipline and just being able to be dedicated and stick to a program or stick to a plan has been my number one issue and my number one problem.
And what year was that with the truck?
That was 2015.
Okay, so 2015, that happened. You put the weight back on. And
Mm-hmm.
in 2016 is when you started again.
Yeah, it's funny. The reason I started, like I say, at that weight, you can't go to Walmart or, whatever store you have, wherever we're at in the country. You can't run to Walmart and buy a scale. Like, 9 times out of 10, a bathroom scale that you get at a convenience store or whatever, the case may be, is not going to go up that high. Usually they go up to 250. If you're lucky, you can get one that goes to 300. So I hadn't weighed in a while. Since the early part of 2015, probably. And this is somewhere, I want to say it was around May. No, it was mid to the end of June of 2016. And I was hauling off some scrap iron. So I had a pickup truck full of, scrap metal, aluminum, whatnot, that I was hauling off to the recyclers to like be recycled or whatever. And they had one of those huge industry scales that you put all your metal on or whatever, and it weighs it and tells you how much you brought in, so they know how much to pay you. I looked at the guy and I was like, "Hey man, can I stand on that?" I said, "I haven't weighed in over a year. I can't find a scale that'll work, or that'll go up high enough." And he laughed at me because he didn't know I was serious. And I was like, "No, like I'm being honest. Like, would you mind?" And he was like, "Oh no, here." He like swept it off, brushed it off, and scale or zeroed it out. And so I stepped up on that, and I remember just, seeing it and seeing, like, my heart sunk. Like, I was, what was I? I was 21. I just turned 21, and I was, within 25 pounds of hitting a quarter ton. Like, that was heartbreaking, monumental in the worst way. That was just, it killed me inside to see that, because my mom always told me, and, the way I would eat growing up, she always told me, "You're going to hit 500 pounds." No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I won't hit 500. I'm not going to do that. That's, that just happens on that TV show. Like, people don't actually hit 500 pounds. I'm good. And here I was, 6 months away. I would have been 500 pounds if I didn't do something.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into that. Let's talk about what you did and kind of why this time in 2016 was your last time, if that makes sense. So I can remember the very, very first thing that I changed, and it may not sound like it was a monumental change, but believe you me, it was absolutely one of the hardest things that I changed. So as I was telling you before we started, I found a plan on bodybuilding.com by a bodybuilder whose name is Chris Gethin. I started following his plan, and along with his plan, he gave you like a little bit of some, diet stuff that you could do to help really cut your body fat down. One of the tips that he gave was to drink your coffee black. Now, when I tell you that I enjoyed my coffee about 2 steps above chocolate milk, that's how much cream I would put in my coffee. And I'm not just talking half and half either, brother. I am talking like Cinnabon, loaded with sugar, full fat, like cream, just loading up the coffee. That was the very first thing that I cut out. I ditched it. And I went from that to black coffee almost immediately. And I remember that first day drinking that black coffee, I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. Is there something else I can do? And I'm sure I could have like dialed it back and maybe, just did like a serving size instead of like 10 serving size. But I figured if I was going to do it, I was going all or nothing. So, long story long, that was the very first thing that I did. I cut the cream out of my coffee. Is there anything that you can remember doing? Any change that you made, like right off the bat? This is the first thing that I'm going to do.
Yeah, mine was cutting out soda or pop, depending on where you're listening from. So yeah, cutting out sodas and beer was, I cut that out. That was the number one thing because one, I mean, I was drinking at least a 12 pack of soda a day. Like it was nothing to polish off a 12 pack. That was honestly, I could do it in 4 or 5 hours if I was bored. So that was the biggest thing to me was cutting that out and drinking a lot more water. I was that kid I was that very large man that was carrying around the gallon jugs of water, and I would shoot for 2 gallons a day because most times I would finish off the first gallon with lunch or shortly thereafter. So that was definitely the first thing was, quit drinking my calories, quit drinking because not only one, it doesn't provide anything beneficial for you, but it goes right through. Your body absorbs those calories and it does nothing for you as far as, holding you over. It does nothing for you in terms of anything. It literally just makes you heavier or it makes you more unhealthy or, raises your blood sugar, whatever the case may be.
And I'm assuming that when you're saying you were polishing off a 12 pack of soda, you weren't drinking Diet Coke.
Oh no, no, no! I don't know if you have any experience in the South, but we have what's called Big Red, and we didn't have it in Nebraska, so I don't know if it's all over or if it's just a Southern thing. But Big Red is one of the sweetest sodas you can buy, but it's good, or it was good. It's probably too sweet now. I haven't had one in probably over a year.
Now, so what is it? Is it like a cola or what kind of soda is it?
Um, it's uh, it's really hard to explain. It's on the cream soda side of the
Okay.
aspect. It's probably like a strawberry kind of like strawberry cream soda ish. I don't know where the red comes in or what the additional flavor is, but yeah, it's somewhere on the cream soda. I for really growing up, I didn't tolerate the dark sodas that well, so my go to a lot of times was Mountain Dew.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I was telling you, I just came from, South Carolina, but they didn't have Big Red down there, so I don't know. I don't know where you can find that. Maybe it's a Texas thing.
I'm almost positive it originated in Texas.
All right, so that's soda. You cut the soda out. You were drinking. You replace that with a gallon of water. Really 2 gallons of water. You were shooting for every day. And what were some more of these, changes that you started to make? I know you said when you had this bet with the teacher and stuff, you were doing some meal prepping, and you were getting used to packing your meals and doing stuff like that. So, was there anything that you carried over from, your attempts before into this now final attempt and can stick with?
Yeah, one thing I definitely did was I had a friend and his mom could cook really good. So I had to pretty much just, after work, instead of going over to their house and hanging out, I would just go straight home because if I went to their house, they always had, really good food in the oven or really good food on the stove, whatever the case may be. So I was always, extremely tempted. And like I say, discipline was not my strong suit. So a lot of times I would end up, ruining if I would do good throughout the day, with my meal prepped meals or whatever the case may be. Then I would get home and I would consume, 5,000 calories within 2 or 3 hours of going to bed. So that was my main struggle. Was just, yeah, it's okay. It's definitely not easy, but it's easier to stick to the diet plan throughout the day. Like you meal prep, you take your stuff, you know what to eat. Especially if you're cheap like me, like I hate spending money. So if I have food I can eat with me, I'm not going to spend money. Um, So it was just, maintaining that throughout the day instead of doing really good throughout the day and then going home and throwing it all away, eating a tub of ice cream or whatever right before I pass out.
Now, I nowadays for you, do you even keep that stuff in the house?
Oh, no, no, no. I don't have, I can't tell you the last time I bought ice cream. I honestly don't remember. Um, Well, actually, I want to say it was like 6, 8 months ago. I bought just like one of the little pints of ice cream just because it sounded good, and I ended up sharing it with somebody. But yeah, it's not. It's. I do my very best to avoid it altogether. I do like sweets. Like I love Reese's, so that is an extreme challenge. Just avoiding that because it's never just let me have one Reese's. It's there's a king pack of, or a king size pack of white chocolate Reese's right there. Let me just go ahead and eat those.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, and that always I don't like the way I feel after I eat it. It makes me feel like crap, and I instantly regret it. But for some reason, the next day I do it again. So doing that has been, keeping away those small things that don't fill you up, that don't, that provide 400 or 500 calories with Lord knows how many sugar, but don't provide anything and don't hold you over appetite wise. That's the hardest part.
And what about your fried foods? Because I know for me, if if I eat something fried, like my one of my vices is Chick-fil-A. Like I just absolutely love Chick-fil-A. I don't know if you guys have Chick-fil-A down there, but
Oh yeah.
it's like and so what I've been doing recently is I'll get the grilled chicken nuggets over the fried chicken nuggets. And it's like I kind of like I have a small French fry with grilled chicken nuggets, and it kind of scratches that itch for Chick Fil A. But every once in a while, if I have like a really big training day on the weekend, and I know that I have some wiggle room to play with in the calories department, I will get Chick Fil A, and I'll get the chicken sandwich deluxe with all this. But man, I'll tell you, I feel like shit after I eat that. Like it's just like it. I don't know what it does to your body. So you grew up kind of eating the fried foods, but now if you revert back and you have something, does that like mess with you at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The grease, I mean, it slows you down. It just makes you feel so sluggish. Like, and I have like oily skin, so it like on my forehead, and it makes my forehead, my skin gets so much more oily, and it's so much worse. If I've eaten bad for a day or two, like that, my skin just gets so bad. Like I said, I was on vacation recently in Nebraska. I spent a week up there, and it was just there's a lot of good food. You're with family, so it's like, what can you do? 9 times out of 10, there's not a lot of healthy options per se. So you just maintain your portions and eat little, but I can't eat much, but it's just one of those things that it drastically slows you down. You feel your body fighting back, I guess is the best way to put it. It's like it's literally like a foreign body in there that it's just your body is trying to fight it off, and it definitely takes a toll on me.
And so, what do you think is the biggest difference between when you started and then your truck broke down and you were like, all right, that's it. And then instead of just missing that day, because it happens, like shit happens, you miss a day at the gym and then you're right back to it the next day. But like you allowed that to completely knock you off the rails. And I bet if that happened again, or if you got stuck at, work or something this time around, you would be right back at the gym the next day. What is different this time around?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely by no means perfect in it. I mean, I will go through phases that, there was one time I went probably around 2 months or so without getting in the gym. And my weight loss definitely stalled. I sat still at about where I was. Um, and it's just, all right, so going back, like, one of the first things I got to give credit where it's due. It was actually an ex girlfriend that really motivated me and made me make that change. I was doing the research, I was working on it anyway. I was looking into everything. But it was actually ended up being an ex of mine, or, now she's an ex that kind of held me to it, or really just made me stand strong and want to make that change, like constantly pushing me to better myself. So that was definitely where it came from in regards of, how did I start and not go back? Because I did, all that, ended up losing 100 pounds in the first year. It was actually, let's see, no, it was 10 months. I lost my first 100. So I ended up losing my first 100 pounds from July up until May of 2017, May of last year. There was I put a big post on my Instagram up the other day kind of explaining my timeline in this story, but I can re-illustrate it. It was, I met her and kind of helped stick with everything and just keep me on track and on path with everything that I was doing. And so after that, it just, I was constantly pushing. I was constantly going. I was meeting with a nutritionist. I had to do that for 6 months and met with this nutritionist. And I was always, every month I'd be down 10 pounds, 13 pounds, whatever the case may be. And from July of 16 to May of 2017, ended up losing that first 100. And then May of 17 was when I had the sleeve. And after I did that, I mean, it's taken a little over a year, but I hit the second 100. And I mean, it's just now, it's crazy how your body reacts. It's crazy how your body just completely transforms and the way your mindset takes over. Because now it's like that week I was in vacation, I was doing, 4.5, 5 miles a day just because I missed working out. I missed sweating. I missed that constant, the effort being given. So, it's come to where now it's just a part of me. Like it's a part of the day. It's a part of my life to where I have to have that feeling of exhaustion or that feeling of exertion, knowing that I, conquered the day. Like, the best day is the day, you start in the gym. I know people vary, but I love first thing in the morning workouts. I love working out before the sun comes up, whatever it is. I like getting it in then because it just, you feel, you have that endorphin rush throughout the day. You just feel better. So that it's genuinely become kind of, who I am, I guess, in the regards that I just don't feel quite right when I eat bad, or I don't feel right whenever I'm not in the gym. So now, I genuinely don't see myself ever reverting back to the way I was, just because it's such a, I don't know, it's such a, I guess you'll say, high that you're on, when you're in the gym, and whenever you don't eat right, you can feel it. So it kind of rides out. So it's a lot easier to stick with as you progress and as you move into it further. Every little step you make is just one more building block on that, that addiction for health and for working out or whatever it is. Just every accomplishment puts you more and more motivation.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think that not only you're getting that endorphin rush, like you said, so when you don't work out, you're missing out on those endorphins, and your body's like, hey, we need those back again. Like, what's going on,
Yeah, absolutely. Because, whenever you first start working out, that's a rush. Those endorphins are new to you. So it's a completely different, feeling, or I'll use the term high. Like it's a different high. But after you work out, I think they say it takes 21 times or whatever to create a habit, whatever that is.
Yep.
But after you get to that point where you work out, your body eventually builds those receptors and it needs those endorphins. So on the days that you don't go to the gym, you feel down because you don't have those endorphins flowing through your blood. You don't have that building on keeping you up. So it genuinely breaks down scientifically even to where it plays out, you can train your body to love exercise and to need that exercise in order to have a good day.
Yeah, and I think it does take some time to build that up. Like, it's not going to happen. None of this is going to happen overnight,
No,
So
absolutely.
it's just one of those things where you have to stick with it, and you got to keep showing up, and you have to keep putting in the work. But if you do, you will absolutely be rewarded for that. And I think that your story is just a true testament to that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like I say, it has 100% been the best, decision I've made, moving forward. There's so many more doors have opened up, and it's a shame, and I hate that, society is so twisted and so judgmental to where, you have to lose weight to have doors opened up for you or whatever it is. But you genuinely, you can achieve more after losing weight. And I don't like that aspect of society, unfortunately. And I'm honestly, like, I hope that, this generation, or, that we can change that, because the way things are now, the way it's, oh, well, yeah, you got an interview on paper, you look perfect, but you showed up and you were, come on now, like, we don't want you representing the company or whatever. Obviously, they're not going to tell you that, but you can pretty much just read it. So, I do believe that, more options have opened up. I do believe that, I've had better luck at, succeeding in certain aspects in certain areas, due to this, this change. And it's just, it's crazy what opens up to you, and what, that never used to seem like a reality all of a sudden becomes, real life. You're living it.
And so, there actually, one of the things that popped into my head that I wanted to ask you was, do you feel like, since you've lost the weight, being 213 versus 476, do you think, or have you noticed, that people look at you differently, treat you differently, or something as simple as like somebody smiles at you when you're walking down the street, and somebody didn't used to do that when you were weighing in at 476? And do you think it's that you're noticing it more now, and maybe it was happening before but you weren't noticing it? Or do you think that there's truly a change now just because you look different?
Well, one thing about, I don't know what it is about me and my personality, but I look at people, like, as I'm walking, I constantly look at people to see if they're looking at me. Like, I'm like, oh, is something wrong? Like, is my hair doing something weird, or do I have something in my teeth? Like, just that constant, like, I guess, anxiety, like, what am I doing wrong or something? Like, are people laughing at me? And so I constantly, as I'm walking around the store, whatever it is, as I'm passing somebody, I always look at them to see if they're looking at me. And yeah, I 100% believe, now people do look at me more often, because, it seems like back then it's always was people would rush by you. It was like, okay, we got to hurry up and get past, I don't want to get either caught in the same aisle, squished in the same aisle, whatever it is, or I don't want to make eye contact if you might try and talk to me, whatever. Now I do feel like, a lot more people open up. I've always been a, fairly outgoing person, as far as, talking to people. I'm for the most part extroverted, depending on the situation. But yeah, like, I definitely feel like people are more open and welcoming, I guess, to me now as opposed to back then.
Yeah, and I think it's weird, and I don't know if it's like maybe a confidence thing, and like I was walking around like just looking at the ground because I didn't want to make eye contact with people because I didn't want to see them looking at me, like, kind of thing. But it definitely seems like now that when I am walking down the street or I'm walking through a grocery store, like, I guess I just notice it more. I don't know, but I can now like look at someone, and they, when I look at them, they like smile, and I smile back, and it's like it feels good. But at the same time, like, why does it matter? Why does it matter if you're 300 plus pounds or you're 150 pounds? Like, you can't smile at a person? Like, I don't know. It's just it's something that's interesting to me, and I haven't quite figured it out.
Yeah, exactly. It is. And I just think I don't know. I don't want to sound judgmental by, saying it's judgmental by, just assuming that that's what it is. I don't want to say, that people just look down the heavier people or whatever the case is. And, whenever we're bigger, okay, I don't want to look at them. I don't want to stare at them. They might try and talk to me. They might try and start a conversation. You don't want to assume that that's what it is, but that's definitely what it seems like it is. Like, okay, now you're more willing, the same people that used to brush you off or whatever, or not pay attention. Now they're, more willing to talk to you or tell you look good. Like, oh, hey, you're doing great. I'm proud of you, whatever. But at the same time, they were the ones that would kind of, scurry around the corner at the grocery store or whatever back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I had just two other things I wanted to ask you about, and the first one is I want to go back to when you started your journey this time in 2016, and you said that you were working with a nutritionist, but did you follow any sort of, I hate the word diet, but did you follow anything like keto or paleo or low carb, or like what's the one that you kind of gravitate towards, if any at all?
Um, like I said, I like science a lot, so I'm very interested in a lot of different aspects of diet and nutrition. Um, it's kind of honestly, I've done it all. I've done, primarily I always seem to revert back to the low carb, the chicken breast, the long grain brown rice, the steamed vegetables. Uh, Now I'm doing like tilapia and shrimp and things of that nature. That's where I'm at now. But I did keto for quite a while. Was on a supplement company that promoted keto, extremely. So I did that for a while. I liked it. I didn't really like that keto flu or whatever. The first couple days where your body is going into ketosis. I wasn't a huge fan of that. Didn't like the way I felt. And like I say, just going back to the whole eating bad fatty foods, like consuming high amounts of fat, just did not make me feel good. I felt like I sweat more. I felt like my skin was oilier. I just wasn't a fan of that feeling. I like the cleaner, natural feeling. Uh, I absolutely renounced. Like I hated the idea of vegan just because, living in Texas, when somebody says they're vegan, it's that stereotype, Prius, whatever, blah blah blah, narrow-minded, that kind of. And sorry if you do drive a Prius.
I don't know. You're good.
I actually want one now. Now that I got to pay for my own gas. Um, but yeah, and one time I started looking at it, and it was like shown that it can reduce, what is it, Alzheimer's? It was shown it can reduce anxiety and depression. All this stuff I was reading and all these research papers, and I'm like, why don't I try this? So I went in and did nothing but that was my problem. I went in, I did nothing but like fruit smoothies with like a vegan protein powder, and then salads with my protein sources being only almonds, sunflower seeds, and I think that was it. Like, so I wasn't doing any tofu, I wasn't doing any black beans even. Like, I was straight up just doing almonds. That was my protein, other than a vegan protein powder. And so that definitely, I did that for a while. I want to say I lost about 27 to 30 pounds in a month doing that. And I genuinely felt good. Like, I liked it. I felt clean. Like I was talking about my skin earlier, my skin wasn't as oily. Like, things just, I felt better. But I wasn't doing it right at all. So it was extremely difficult to stick with due to the limited resources and, the way I was trying to do it. Like I say, my main one I always revert back to is just a low carb, no processed sugars. Really don't even do a lot of fruits even. It's primarily just pretty much rice, lean meats, whether it be chicken, turkey, fish, or shrimp. That's just kind of what I always seem to revert back to, and getting in vegetables. I put kale or spinach or whatever in my smoothies, shakes, things along that line. Just trying to keep the vitamins and everything up. But yeah, that's where I always seem to end up back at.
And what about like counting calories or counting macros? Did you do either of those? Do you prefer one over the other?
Um, I would try to count calories. I would say like that would be my main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would be trying to stick under, say, my goal was around 1,500 ish. I would always try to keep it around 1,500, but I did I did look at my macros and try and keep my macros on pace uh, to where it was, a decent ratio. I always go high protein,
Mm-hmm.
mid carbs, but like I say, coming from natural sources,
Right.
fruits and things of that. And then I would also do the, low fat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And so the last thing I kind of want to leave it off with is out of all the changes that you made this last time around, What do you think the most difficult change was that you had to make?
One of the most difficult change. Um, Definitely not, going out with friends, whether it be going out to dinner, which usually going out to dinner would involve having a beer or having a margarita or whatever the case may be, but not going out with, people in that regards. And I'm not saying, oh, I just renounced it. I never go out with people because I don't do that. So it's not that. It's just like if you're, on a strict, say, like right now I'm doing a 12-week phase, or a 12-week kind of cut. I'm not going to be going out to eat, or if I do, I'm going to eat beforehand, or whatever the case may be. But that's definitely the hardest thing is, oh, hey, I had leftover, enchiladas. I brought them to work. If they're in the break room, if y'all want some. Not going in there and pigging out on free food. As I mentioned earlier, I'm cheap, so if I can see a free meal, I'm gonna stock up. So
Absolutely.
that's definitely been the hardest part is just, turning down the temptation whenever it's in my face. Like, hey, let's go out for drinks after work. Hey, let's go to, get tacos after work, whatever the case may be. Turning down that has definitely been my hardest challenge.
And I think that if, for people who are listening, who are in that same situation and, they have to turn something down, whether it be that piece of cake or the cookie in the break room at work or, having that extra drink or whatever it is out at dinner, the biggest thing that I have found is, when somebody says, and it just happened to me last week at work. There was, stuff in the kitchen, and they're like, "Oh, there's cookies and cake in there," and I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm okay. I'm not going to have any today." And they're like, "Oh, that's right, you can't have that." And I'm like, "No, I could. It's right in the kitchen. I could go and get it. I'm fully capable of going in there and cutting myself a slice of cake. Like I can have it. It's just that I don't want to. I don't want to have that right now." And I think it's flicking that switch in your head and changing your mindset and not focusing on, oh, I can't have that, I can't have this, I can't do that. And just turning it around and, thinking about the things that you can have and the things that you can do. And also, it's that you don't want to have it. It's not that you can't, because you can, but you don't want to, because it's not going to help you reach the goal, the greater thing that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like I 100%. I mean, honestly, I feel like that even just, I mean, hearing that benefited me just because I've never really considered it that way. I'm always the person that if somebody asks me, I'll say, no, I can't have that. And I've never really thought about it like that. Like, you know what? I'm perfectly capable of it. It's just, what I want is better than the next, 20 minutes of tasting cake in my mouth. Like it's not worth, like, I mean, I'm shooting for abs. I don't know if I'll ever hit that point, of actually having definable abs, but the abs that I may or may not end up with are going to be a lot better and a lot more enjoyable than, the 5-minute slice of cake in the kitchen. So it's about making that, short-term sacrifice for the long-term goal. Like it's well worth it. And especially knowing that my body is used to not having that sugar, to where if I was to go get that cake, it's just going to make me feel like crap. My sugar's going to spike. It's just going to cause issues anyway.
Yeah, and so the podcast that I just released from this week was with a guy, Tim Ford, who has a very similar story to you and I. Was clocking in probably somewhere around like 264, I think it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. Yeah, it was he was 264. Very similar story. Long story short, we were talking about kind of some of the same stuff, and so for those who are listening that listen to that episode, I am well aware that I said this on that episode, but we may have some new listeners from Ethan's followers and everything, so I want to say this again. One of the things that I've started also doing, especially if I'm passing by that Chick-fil-A, or if I'm standing in line at the Wawa, which for those of us who are on the East Coast, that. My second biggest vice is soft pretzels. And so when I look at the soft pretzels and I'm thinking about getting one or, going to Chick-fil-A, whatever the case may be, I stop and I take about 10 seconds and I think about how, whatever it is that I want, I think about how that's going to affect what my greater goal is. So if I eat this soft pretzel or if I eat this Chick-fil-A right now, how is that going to impact my goal of hitting a certain time in a triathlon? Or how is that going to impact my goal of, losing that 5 pounds or that 10 pounds that, I'm gunning for in this month or this week or whatever the case may be. If you take the time to really become aware of that, I'll tell you, it's 10 seconds, but it pays dividends. And there's been times where I go past that Chick-fil-A and I walk past that soft pretzel rack just from thinking about, okay, if I have that, how is it going to affect my goals? So it's just another little, I guess, trick you can kind of keep in your pocket for those times where you're really thinking about having that slice of cake.
Yeah, absolutely. I was on my way back earlier. I met with an advisor at my university I'm transferring into. I had to stop and get gas, and I don't know. I don't know if there's QTs or Quick Trips up on the East Coast, but they have like this huge roller grill with all these hot dogs and tornadoes and like taquitos, all this like just glorious food that nobody should ever be able to consume because it's so bad for you.
But it tastes
But
so good too.
but it's so good, isn't it, man? I was walking in and they were doing like the little sale on the hot dogs or whatever. So I actually pulled out my phone, pulled up my Fitness Pal, and I was like, all right, what does this look like in regards of calories and macros? You know, it was one hot dog was 270 calories, no bun or anything included. I want to say it was like 29 grams of fat or something, 10 grams of protein, and like I want to say 7 carbs or something like that. And I I I won. And I mean, that was, I put my phone back in my pocket. I said, no, that's not, okay, yeah, those aren't bad. I probably do have a little calories to, wiggle with, I guess, that I could maybe spare it. But the fat to protein ratio just did it for me. I was like, you know what? I can't justify spending 30 grams of fat almost just to get 10 grams of protein. Like it's not, I want abs. Anybody with abs isn't going to walk in here. Well, anybody with abs with my kind of past and my metabolism isn't going to walk in here, eat a hot dog and get their abs back, or, like it's not going to benefit me. It's going to do nothing but taste good for the next 5 minutes and then leave me with weird smelling breath for the rest of the day. And it's not going to get me any closer to my goal. So I put my phone in my pocket and I walked back out and got my gas and I left. So it was just one of those things, like, just the fact of just taking the time to pull it out and look at my Fitness Pal basically equivalents to that 10-second span for you. That was, just giving yourself time to think, okay, what is this going to do for my goal? Is it going to push me closer in any way? Is it going to keep me the same? Is it going to retract me? Like, where is it going to put me? And so just giving yourself time to, think that through is huge.
Yeah, it's the little wins too. Getting those little wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I got back in the car and I put on Five Finger Death Punch and I was jamming, like, I was happy. I was hyped up and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm gonna hit you with one last question, and this one is gonna put you on the spot. You did not know that this one's coming, but I want you to think back to the mindset that you were in when you allowed your truck breaking down to completely like knock you off of the rails, and I want you to imagine that you is standing in front of you, or maybe it's someone else who's standing in front of you, and they're like, oh, well, like, Ethan, man, my truck broke down. I couldn't get to the gym, but that was, 3 weeks ago. So, now it's like, well, what was your excuse for the other, 20 some odd days that came up? What do you say to that person who's like, oh man, but my truck broke down, or my this or my that? They need to start getting into the same mindset that you got into.
I mean, one thing that's I don't do well with excuses anymore, and I was the worst about making excuses growing up. I was the worst about making excuses up until pretty much 2 years ago. I mean, honestly, that was just when it ended. If I did let an excuse get the best of me one day, I wasn't going to turn it into a long-term thing. We all have bad days. An excuse can get somebody on any day. But, not letting the fact that it got you yesterday fuel you to not let it get you today. if you may very well have a good excuse. Something, your truck may break down, your car may break down, you may be in a car accident, you may get, hey, I need you to work a double at work, you can't get off, you have to go pick up your kids, whatever the case may be. That may be a very good excuse for that day. And honestly, even there 24 hours in a day, I don't even know if you can say it's a good excuse. Like, I always like the Arnold quotes that, if you need more than 6 hours of sleep, sleep faster. It's just been one of those things. I don't tolerate excuses really from myself or from anyone anymore. You can make anything you want to happen. You can make it. You can make it happen. Um, One of my post on Instagram, I always try and center my Instagram posts around, something motivational or inspirational. Mine today was about that very same thing. If you come up to a door and it's closed, find a window. You can always do it. You can always, no matter what is holding you back for that day, no matter what is keeping you, you can always figure it out. Because if you step back and look at it, 9 times out of 10, whatever, is stopping you or keeping you out of the gym or keeping you from meal prepping tonight before you go to bed, whatever is keeping you from doing the next step to put you towards where you want to be, 9 times out of 10, it's in your head. It's completely made up. Even if it is real and tangible, there's always something you can do to get around it or to bypass it. If you don't have time, sleep a little faster. Wake up 2 hours early. Wake up an hour earlier. If you don't have time after work, you're exhausted after work, you can't go to the gym, wake up a little earlier and go before work. That's the best way to do it. Even, losing as much weight as I have, even, 260 pounds still isn't light on the feet. So, yeah, when I get out of work, my feet usually hurt. So going to the gym after work is not as easy as going to the gym before work. But I'd rather wake up at 4:30 and go to the gym and get that out of the way and feel that endorphin high throughout the rest of the day, knowing that I conquered the day. I did what I needed to do to put me closer to my goals. There's always a way around it. There's always a way around any mountain, if you will, that stands in front of you and between you and your goals.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So, I mean, I think that's a great spot to just wrap it up. I want to say thank you so much for coming on and for sharing your story and being so open with me and, with everybody who's going to listen to this. And I, it's weird because when people used to say congratulations to me, I would hate it. But now I'm like, I kind of don't know what else to say to people. So, my only alternative is that you've done amazing work, and I have no doubt that you're going to get that six pack, and that you are definitely going to do that full marathon.
Yeah, man, I'm shooting for that 26 too. We're going for it. I
Yeah,
I, uh, I really appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and asking me to be on. This is definitely stepping out of my comfort zone doing things like this, but I love it. One of my main mottos I've tried to live by now is life begins outside of your comfort zone. So I've tried to, if it scares me, if it makes me feel a little funny, raises my heart rate a little bit, I'm probably headed in the right direction. So like I say, I'm honored and thrilled that you asked me to do this, and like I say, I really appreciate it, and hopefully somebody can find some benefit to something I said.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. All right, man. Well, if you have a 4:30 wake up call, I will definitely let you get going here.
Yeah, I just got to finish up my meal prep for the next 2 days and finish registering for these classes, and I'll be passed out.
There you go. All right, man. Well, you have a great night, and I will talk with you soon.
Okay, hey, I really appreciate it, brother. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yep, yep. You too. Thank you, man.
Uh huh.
All right,
Bye
take
bye.
care. So, how was that? What did you think of Ethan's story? I was just in an absolute awe the whole time with the amount of dedication that Ethan has to this new lifestyle that he has taken on. And I really, really respect everything that he's doing. We come from such a similar story and a similar background that it it was just amazing to see the parallels between both of our stories, and it was amazing to hear something that somebody else was doing and going through, and seeing that you're not the only one. And if you are someone out there who is going through a weight loss transformation or thinking about getting started, I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that you are not alone, and there are people who have done it, and there are people who have hit a wall, and people who have gone through some of the same things that are going through, may go through, and they can help you, and there's always help, and there's always, as Ethan said, there's always a way around it. There's always a way to get it done. So I just want to thank Ethan again for coming on, and I want to thank you, the listeners, for taking some time out of your day, evening, morning, whenever it is, to spend some time with us and, listen to Ethan's story. And I cannot wait to bring you another amazing story next week.